Thanks for that honour. Good evening, everybody. My name is Graham Monaghan, and I'm a candidate representing Intu in the upcoming election. Listen, I'm brand new to all this stuff. I've been involved around politics for a long number of years, and I deeply care about our democracy. In my reply to this wonderful event, I said this evening would be an education for me, and I truly mean that. I'm a person who believes in our region. I believe in the betterment for all of us. So anything that helps that is a good thing. I just had a quick chat with my Director of Elections as he came in this evening. And Kieran is very well read on these issues. So at times this evening I will apologise if it's okay, if there's a direct question that I genuinely do not know the answer to. I want you to get the truth from our stance. I've been talking to, I'm not going to delay you too long, talking to Kieran as he came in. I'm glad that my personal feelings on these issues totally align with our party's. So anything you hear from us this evening and from our camp is in complete and utter support with you guys. I just actually said to one of the people who's involved with this evening that in theory, in reality, this event shouldn't even have to happen. This shouldn't be a problem for our society. So I'm here to hear the issues, and I'm here also to be a messenger to bring a very loud message back to the people who need to open their ears and hear the message. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Eamon Scanlon. I have been a Senator and TD for 13 and a half years. I have represented Sligo North Leitrim. In fact, I don't think I fight my fifth election. I don't think I ever fought in the same constituency twice, which doesn't leave it any easier. But I'm very much aware of the issues that's been raised here tonight. I have to say about gold mining, I don't know a thing about it, quite honestly. But I do know that the licences have to be granted by the EPA, and I know that the Leitrim County Council would have to grant permission for that. So, look, there's a few checks and balances there. In relation to fracking, I took the motion in the Dáil with Eddie present in relation to fracking, to ban fracking in Ireland. We were successful, and we got that done at that particular time. So I'm very much aware of that. Forestry is an issue. It's an issue everywhere, and it's becoming more of an issue. But I think with forestry today, when farmers the grant has been increased to 20 years, but after the 25 years is over and the trees have grown, the farmers themselves then have to pick up the pieces, have to replant the land for another 25 years. So if you work out the payment you get over 50 years, I can tell you it's not very, very good. Listen, I leave it at that, and if I answer any questions anybody wants to ask me. Thank you.
Hi, so Eddie Mitchell is my name. So I'm a spokesperson for Love Leitrim. So you all remember the fight that happened here from 2011 and still goes on today about trying to keep fracking out of Leitrim and keep frack gas out of Ireland. So that's what I'll be talking about tonight.
Hi, I'm James Gilmartin, and I'm chairperson of Treasure Leitrim. And I'm here to talk to you about gold mining in the area and what has happened over the last few years, and to get the candidates' opinion. At this stage, I'd just like to also thank the candidates for making themselves present tonight. Just to follow on what Madeleine said, it's really, really important, and it's great to see such a great turnout from them. We really appreciate them taking the time, because as we're all aware, things are tight at the moment time-wise with the countdown on. So thank you.
My name is Nuala McNulty, and I'm here to represent the Save the Mountain group and to voice the concerns of the people who are worried about that proposed development.
Brian Smith is my name. I live locally here. I'm involved in the Save Leitrim campaign since the start, I think in 2017, 18, I can't remember. But my first involvement in protest on forestry and the issues around forestry took place in 1986, actually, near Drumshanbo, on a site that was being planted, so it's a long-term issue. There are members of our group here as well, so we're delighted to and thank all of the politicians who have supported us in Leitrim County Council from all parties and none indeed, and who continue to do that. But we're also delighted to have our representatives, our people who are looking for our votes here, to listen to us tonight. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Good evening. It's great to be here in the Glens Centre. At one time, this was a home for me. But that's not what we're here to discuss tonight. We're here to discuss 4 important issues: wind energy, gold mining, fracking or the importation of fracked gas, perhaps building LNG terminals, and of course forestry. And when I lived in this part of the world many years ago, forestry was a huge issue at that time. Look, there's loads of stuff on this, lots of details. I've been working on all 4 issues, but I won't go into the detail now. I'll wait until we are discussing the specifics, and I'll give you the detail at that point. But I'm glad to be here, and can I say, it is great to see such a crowd here tonight. I finish by saying I've been to many environmental meetings over the years right across half of Ireland, and rarely have I seen one so well attended. So it shows how important this issue is to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Martin Kenny. I'm a Sinn Féin TD here in this constituency for the past number of years. And just to mention the number of issues that was raised, first of all, in regard to afforestation, the issue of over-afforestation in Leitrim has been a crisis for many communities for the last number of decades, where whole town lands, whole parishes have been decimated and communities die because when the land is planted, nothing happens on it. And we know that. In the last term of the Dáil, I had a bill which I put before the Dáil, which was voted down, unfortunately. In fact, I think Marion was one of the other TDs in Sligo-Leitrim that supported it, and that was that any forestation of over 5 hectares would have to have full planning permission. And that would mean that it would be put back to the local authorities, and at least would put some regulation in relation to it, because it is a permanent change of land use which has a detrimental effect on communities. The issue in regard to the gold mining, again, this is an absolute environmental catastrophe if it were to come to North Leitrim or to anywhere in the country, because it is open cast mining. It causes huge difficulties, again would destroy the environment, would have huge consequences for our watercourses, and would be a terrible vista to visit on the people of not just this county but the entire region if it were to come about, and certainly is something that we're totally opposed to. Fracking was mentioned as well, and at the moment we're talking about the importation of fracked gas. We made a stand in Ireland. Michael Careevy, my predecessor from Manorhamilton here, was one of the people who was very strong on this and done an awful lot of work in regard to ensuring that we would get fracking banned in Ireland. But we don't want to get fracking banned in Ireland and then be bringing the fracked gas from other countries which unfortunately still allow it to happen. Again, it is an environmental catastrophe that we need to see ended. In regard to the wind turbines, at the moment we're working on guidelines that go back to 2006. The updated guidelines have not been brought forward. They have been promised to be brought forward a number of times by the last government and the government before them. That hasn't happened. We need proper guidelines, we need proper regulation. And when wind turbines or any other major infrastructure like that is going in, they should be community owned. That the community are the ones that get the money and get get some payback from it, rather than big corporations. I leave it at that, and thank you very much for your attention.
Hi everyone, my name is Nessa Cosgrove. I was recently elected to Sligo County Council and I'm a representative of the Labour Party. I'm delighted to be here tonight. I suppose I've been a big fan of, and I've been watching from afar all the campaigns that you've been involved in, like Treasure Leitrim, Love Leitrim, and it's something I suppose you've really shown how communities have the power. You've stopped fracking, that was your campaigns. And I suppose you can see how there's positive campaigning. I was watching Groundswell, I was listening to the podcast about it, and it just shows that you were up against it, and you fought. I suppose you fought and you've kept it at bay, but that's not going to last. I suppose from my point of view, I think we need strong representation in this area. And I'm a member of a Labour Party, and I joined the Labour Party because they've got very, very strong climate action policies. And I suppose to go into the issues that you're talking about, we don't need gold mining. There has to be kind of sense involved in things. We don't need gold mining in the area, and we don't need any extra mining really at all. It's totally commercially driven. In windmills, I think we need to go offshore. I think that as a party, again, we've given a big commitment that all of our energy sources is going to be coming from offshore wind. In regards to forestry, I suppose, Martin, you spoke there about the complete over-afforestation in the area, and I know that there is a move towards broadleaf, but we could see for years, because it's year campaigns again, that was been educating me about the dangers of sick to spruce and how it's completely upsetting the whole ecosystem. And then in regards to gas, or obviously, I suppose gas, is that I suppose we've a sister party up north in the SDLP, and I know Claire Hanna, the recently appointed leader, they're very conscious as well in Fermanagh that. So I think we need to take an all-Ireland approach. I know they're on shaky ground in Fermanagh about the way things are going with frack gas, and I know that the recent, the Green Party that, about having the LNG terminal is a very big cause of concern. So I'd love to be represented in the area, and I think I'd be a very strong voice. So thank you.
My name is Paddy O'Rourke. I've been a councillor representing the Ballinamore area since 2004, and I'm currently chairperson of Leitrim County Council. In regard to the fracking issue, I think it was my colleague Councillor Bohan who placed a motion before Leitrim County Council in order that it would be stitched into the county development plan that fracking would not be permissible in County Leitrim. And that, if I remember right, had practically all across the board unanimous support at the time. We also travelled both north and south. I happened to be chairperson of the council, or Cahiрлach, at the time, again later following the 2014 local elections for that year, and we organised some meetings, hastily organised meetings, because it was all kind of as in any other situation, the truth about what was actually happening was in scarce supply, so we found ourselves reacting to situations. I think Martin was still a member of Leitrim County Council at that time, and we travelled both north and south to protests and to make it very clear that no way was this going to be allowed into County Leitrim. And then we also felt very threatened by what was happening at that stage in Northern Ireland. But we'd like to think that that plague has passed, so to speak. We know that there's issues in relation to importing energy that has been produced in that manner, and that has to be opposed. Now, the gold mining, I suppose, when you mention gold anywhere, people sometimes get the wrong impression. Oh my God, gold, Klondike, wealth for everybody. But that has not been the experience of the people in the Sperrin Mountains. What they've been left with is a form of, like Hiroshima effect on their landscape. And that is exactly what would happen here. Because the downstream effect, apart from the, from where the acute wound would be on the landscape, the downstream effect with waterways and everything, it's unimaginable, the damage that could cause in that. So it goes without saying that will have to be opposed, and opposed strenuously. Windmills, Nessa referred to that in regard to the offshore is the place for windmills, because I think there's hardly a place in Europe that has as good an opportunity in the Atlantic, and I don't see why they should be foisted upon people in communities when there is likely to be a far greater benefit from them if they were put in the right place, rather than foisting them upon people and communities who do not want them in their area, damaging their landscape. Were you to build anything else of the scale of that, I wish you luck getting through local authorities, planning permission, or Board Planola. Yet there does seem to be a rush towards it, and this threat about energy running out, that somehow this might be a good time to slip this in. I think we need to have a long and careful thought about that. In relation to forestry, many people in this room will know that I'm firstly a farmer, and secondly I run a small agri-business from a base in Carrigallen that is dependent on farmers. And I have serviced farmers in my area of Leitrim, North Roscommon and West Cavan since 1979. And one by one, I watched several farmers come to the gate and tell me, well, that's it now, Paddy, we won't need you next year, because we're planting our land, or we're giving up our land to our relatives, and they may hold on to it for a couple of years, rent it for a couple of years, and then they're gone. And the highest bidder is typically the forestry. And when the forestry comes in, the people go out. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and my name is Bloheen Gallagher, and I'm running for the Green Party. The Green Party is totally opposed to LNG. We are totally opposed to the import of fracked gas, or setting up a terminal and importing fracked gas. That is something we're absolutely opposed to. I have been involved in a number of the groups here. So, you know, I've been supporting the anti-gold mining group. I have been supporting the anti-fracking group. I grew up in a house where my father was out campaigning back in the 70s about the plantation of monoculture plantations, Sitka spruce, which was a species that was not suitable for our soils. I remember, I was only a child, but I remember him complaining that it would change the alkalinity of the soil. And now in Leitrim, we are we've been just used. I mean, if you take away our lands and rivers, I would say we have perhaps 36% of our actual land covered in monoculture plantations. Then that has to change. On wind turbines, I understand, nobody can say anything about wind turbines. I mean, I'm living right under them. They put up 4 first, and then now there was 8, and now there's 4 more very large ones going up. But I suppose I have to accept that if I believe in a transition to renewables. But the Green Party has been the party, we're only been there a few years, who've been moving to get the offshore wind done, and we've got that going through planning. So that is going to happen, and the only way we are going to make any change to our climate is by stopping fossil fuels, and to do that we need to work on renewables, and we need to do that very, very fast. Thank you.
When I became involved in the environment here, someone mentioned at a meeting that Leitrim was considered a sacrificial zone because of its low population and its potential to how would I put it, plant trees, frack gas, take minerals out of the ground, and put up whatever you want, and tonight to me is a testament of how the community has responded to that. The cohesion we see here tonight, both with you and with the people here at the table. So thank you so much. James, I'm going to come to you first. We're going to put gold mining out to the audience first. And I hear some people say, I don't know much about gold mining. So, could you give a quick synopsis and perhaps mention legislation like the critical raw minerals regulations, which came in from Europe earlier this year, perhaps a slight mention of the planning bill, and what Treasury Leitrim have been up to, and then we'll throw it open to the floor. And when we throw it open to the floor, I would ask you, if you're asking a question, if you can, please say if you're throwing it to the whole table or if it's any particular person. Thank you. James.
Thank you, Madeleine. Okay, so I'll keep this relatively short because I am conscious we have a lot to discuss tonight, but how all this came about was in November 2021 when we became aware of a prospecting licence for base metals, gold or ores of gold and silver that was going to be granted for the area. So we had 28 days to respond to it, and a lot of people, because of what was going on before with the different groups, there was a lot of awareness of outside interest coming in and affecting the land here. So we got together as a group, and in a fairly quick space of time we got over 2,500 objection letters signed, and we presented them as part of our appeal to stop this going ahead. We had a meeting with Minister Ryan in February of 2022 as well in Sligo, where he was adamant that, and he was Minister for the Environment because it's his role to grant the licence, where he was adamant that these base metals were needed for this green transition. And I can see a point in that. And a lot of what we're talking about here tonight as well, it needs to be put in context. Why are all these things happening? Like, what's the thinking behind it? With climate change and with carbon sequestration and all the variables, we have to try and join the dots with them all as well when we try to solve the problems. But going back to the mining, the reason we don't want mining, and it was mentioned very earlier on, and I think it was Paddy mentioned, it's a wound on the land. And that's really what it is. We informed ourselves by going up to Omagh, where there was a pit there since 1995 by the same company. When I say the same company, there's a massive Canadian gold company called Galantis, and they create subsidiaries, smaller companies to take out these licenses. So the company that was operating in Cavanagh was called Omagh Minerals, and they had, I think, 4 directors. But they didn't really behave as well as they should have. They had criminal cases against them for health and safety reasons. They had civil cases against them for failure to pay tax, and I'm talking like 6-7 figure tax figures. So they disbanded. And then this new company, another subsidiary of Flint Ridge, was created to get the licence, and they were called Flint Ridge Resources. I like the benign name Flint Ridge. And 3 of the directors were the same as the 4 directors that have been with Oban Minerals. So it's just really a change in name just to keep the same game going on. And we done all this. There was a lot of work went on behind the scenes with this. So what we say when we went up to Oma, just to go back to that, it really is a wound in the landscape. It's overcast mining. How they take it out of the ground, of course, when you hear about gold mining, people think panning in the river, and this will be on land. There's 47 townlands in North Leitrim that's going to be affected, but one particular hotspot was on land that I farm myself with my family. And that's where my interest came into it. But how they do the overcast mining, they just go in with massive machinery. I mean, I'm talking a huge amount, and just turn it into a lunar landscape. And then they use cyanide and mercury to act like a magnet, to amalgamate with the gold or the small particles, and we're talking really, really small. You're talking about less than a teaspoon in a ton bag of soil. And that attracts it out. So it's like the gold and silver, well, the gold particularly binds with the mercury and cyanide. That's taken out, and then the mercury and cyanide is burned off. And that's really dangerous for getting into the water systems. And that's a huge concern. Fortunately, with the help of Leitrim County Council, prior to myself and this man here beside me being on it, the 18 councillors all supported a motion to ban cyanide and mercury use in the county development plan. So that meant that any company that wanted to mine had to bring the material out of the county. Now, bear in mind that can be overruled by on board Planala. So we were doing really well at that stage. But in 2020, it was in 23, I believe, the Critical Raw Minerals Act came in. Madeline's like, we were saying, make sure everyone talks quick at the start. Now it's me going on, but I want people to know about it. The Critical Raw Minerals Act came in. This is the fastest piece of legislation ever to come through the EU, ever. In less than 12 months, it went from the very start to the very end of the process. And the Critical Raw Minerals Act, I'll not hold you up on it, but basically it means we need to, in Europe, go from 3% to 10% of our own production. We've been going way out of, down to the global south, and we can go on about what went on there. And this opened my eyes to it too, and it goes back to what I said about context and how we're going to solve these problems. So we're at a stage now where we're really coming up to the general election, and I guess we're going to open to the floor in a minute for questions on gold mining. But that's really where we're at now. I know you're conscious to move on. And, Jesus, the teacher getting given out to here, yeah?
I haven't even warmed up yet. Thank you, James. Now, I'm hoping that questions from the floor, that you will actually be able to hear them. The acoustics in here are very good. So can I ask anyone with any questions regarding gold mining?
I'd just like to ask the panel, everybody, what they think about a ban on gold mining and a ban on cyanide for all of Ireland. Okay.
Personally, I have no problem with that at all. I believe in our environment. We have one world. We need to protect it as best we can. I don't think and I'm speaking personally and on behalf of my party, I have absolutely no problem in committing to that at all.
When we hear that with a ton of rock, one bag of rock, you take 1 ounce of it.
Oh, less than
half a teaspoon.
Sorry, my apologies.
Sorry. Over 1 ton of rock or soil or whatever it is, you get a teaspoonful of gold. And after using all that cyanide and mercury, quite honestly, I think it would destroy the whole countryside and the whole county of Leitrim and the whole of Ireland if it gets gold. Thank you.
Yeah. And also bear in mind, there's enough gold in our banks at the moment to last for 500 years for the transition as well.
Thank you. The question about the gold is who owns it. But anyway, I raised the issue with Damon Ryan several times in the Dáil, and it was perhaps the only time he really got a bit annoyed with me, for anybody who wants to listen to what happened, because this was about the prospecting licence. Because if you haven't a prospecting licence, you can't get a mining licence. And I wanted to stop it at the very beginning. And he was quite annoyed with me and told me he knew North Leitrim well and whatever. And it was his role as minister to make sure that Ireland, and I suppose we talk about the EU, was sufficient in the base metals and other metals they need. And to be fair to him, that is an issue. But because we can't rely on China and places in Africa to supply us with, metals or whatever we need for our mobile phones, etc. So I'm trying to be really fair here and not just tell you what you want to hear. So, gold is not a critical mineral. Other minerals might be, but not gold. And that's why I can sit here tonight and say I would fully support a ban on gold mining, because we do not need it. I spoke to our MEPs at the time that Critical Minerals Act was going through the EU. I think most of them voted for it. I asked some of them to vote against it because I was just concerned that it might introduce gold mining. So while we do need some base metals, we do not need gold. So as I said, I fully support a ban, and I have worked to try and stop it at the first step, never mind get to the second, where we'd be looking at mining it.
Thank you, Marion. Yeah. Look, the reality is that gold is a luxury item. It's not something that people need in their lives. We can all live our lives long and hopefully hearty without ever seeing a bit of gold. And there's probably an awful lot of people in the world that will never need gold. And there's an awful lot of other things that they need before it. And one of the issues that we have, and it's in Europe, it's in everywhere, is that a lot of the critical minerals that are being mined in the world are being mined in the poorest countries in the world and being exploited by major corporations who are causing devastation to those environments and then bringing those minerals to Europe and to people so that we can live our modern lives and have our mobile phones and our electric cars and all of these things. So, this is a moral issue that stretches beyond North Leitrim or stretches beyond Ireland. It stretches globally. And I think that needs to be recognised as well. Most of the problems that we have in relation to this, we expect will be somehow or other solved by science. That new materials, that new methods, that new technology will come in vogue, which may render some of these metals which are minerals which are presently absolutely essential not needed in the future. And that's hopefully the direction that this will go in as more research and more money is put into it. And that's what a lot of us want to see happen. But certainly in regard to gold, of all things, is not something that we need. I often said I love my wife very much, but I don't show it with gold. And I think a lot of us could take that on. Don't show it with gold. We don't need to be buying gold. We don't need it in our lives. We need things which will keep our environment right, which will keep our economy right. Gold isn't one of them. And I have no difficulty in saying that we shouldn't be mining for gold in Ireland. There are other critical minerals possibly we need to look at, but again, we need to be very, very cautious about this, because as I say, hopefully technology and new research will bring us to a position where compounds and minerals which are in abundance, which wouldn't require this kind of rupturing of the earth, would be used to be able to deliver some of the resources that we need at present. Thank you.
I just go along exactly what all the speakers said before me as well. And I'd be very conscious as well of the exploitation of workers in the global south, like you said, Martin, often for our own use in the Western world, but we don't need gold. And even when I heard it first, when I was reading saying gold mining in Leitrim, I thought it was a joke. I didn't think, how could this even, how would it even have come up, that. But it's driven by, I just think it's driven by greed, and I would be very happy. I'm a county councillor in Sligo County Council, to bring in, like you brought in, that you got a ban for in Leitrim County Council, that we would have it introduced in Sligo County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Nessa. Well, I have almost nothing in the house that resembles gold, and I honestly think I honestly think that those I honestly think that those who extract gold and process it, they're essentially trading on the vanity of well-to-do people. and exploiting their vanity. And the best of luck to them, but let them get their earnings off them in some other way that's clean and decent, and not leave a scar on our landscape as a result of their haste to enrich themselves. Thank you.
I led on a motion from the Sligo-Leitrim constituency to the National Party to have the extractive industry reduced, in the sense that what we need to do is look at the circular economy and see what we have already above ground. There certainly are items that are essential for our future, and we can't say no to them. And we have to think about our own morals, as has been mentioned. We're all going around with mobile phones. All of them carry elements in them that have been exploited. People have been exploited to use these. We have to think about that. Are we going to say, we don't want it here? So, not that I'm ever advocating mining. We do not need gold mining, because, as James rightly said, there's over 500 years worth of gold. Now, gold is actually essential for certain medical devices, and it's essential for some of the renewables, because of its conductivity. They say they can't use it. But we have enough above ground. We don't need it. And I would have no problem at all supporting a ban on gold mining in this country. And I would also remind people that prospecting licences, they are only as good as the landowners, because if the landowners don't let the people onto their land, it is very difficult for them to legally say that they now can have gold here that they can extract. So I think we have to have the support from everybody on that to make sure that we can get, and like James and Lovely, or Treasury Leitrim have been working very, very hard on that to make sure that people cannot get on their land to do the prospecting.
Well, in relation to your question, it sounds like it's a unanimous decision here that gold mining will be banned in Leitrim. And yes.
And I'd love Brian to maybe explain this one to me. And I'm not trying to be confrontational. I just want to get clarification. You're after saying that the granting of permissions, prospecting, the granting of licences is one thing, but it's up to the landowners. That's putting the cart before the horse. If the Minister for the Environment says no, nobody can sell their land for that use, full stop. That sounds the most bizarre argument I've ever heard in my life. Apologies.
Can I come back on that? Thank you, madam. You're going to get a lot of steps in. You're going to get a lot of steps in tonight. So what I'm saying is the prospecting licences have been granted, but landowners now are putting up signs to stop people getting on their land to do the prospecting. And when the prospecting licence was applied for, it was applied for gold mining and base minerals, and that's why it was granted. By your minister? Yeah, not my personal minister, by the Green Party minister, who's the Minister for the Environment, Graham. But he had to do his duty. Why would he refuse licences for base minerals? Why would he refuse license for base minerals? And you have to remember that a prospecting licence is not a mining licence. And in order to get a mining licence, there's huge environmental restrictions. And that's, like, if it ever got that far, then that is when there'll be a lot of work to be done.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions on gold mining? Any hands there? Yes?
A hypothetical question. If it was a critically required mineral and it did come out at a stone per tonne, what would the party's policy be on it then?
Okay, so your question is if it ended up being a critical mineral.
Yeah, and it came out instead of a teaspoon, it came out at a stone.
So there's an abundance of it.
Yeah. What would the party's
position be then? Okay, all right. I'm just going to take maybe two more questions and combine them because we have a lot of people and time is moving quickly. Any other? Yeah?
Yeah, just in relation to the prospecting licence, could the Minister not refuse to grant the licence for gold? I'm just thinking of the time of when the fracking, and only that the groups were so alert to what was going on and gathered all the information and brought people in from Canada and America and every place else to tell us what was going on there, we wouldn't have been as well informed. And just to give an example of what happened, we were told by Leitrim County Council on their legal advice at the time that if we put that ban in, we could be surcharged. And it scared the life out of a lot of people. So we went and got independent legal advice, and they told us, no, that was wrong. So we have to fight so hard and get so much information ourselves that surely the government of the day, should be aware of all of this and inform people. So I can't understand why the prospecting licence was granted in the beginning for, if it was for some particular thing that was badly needed and it wasn't going to affect them. But it's the people on the ground have to do all the legwork, and the amount of work that went in here with these groups and being given information that wasn't correct by departments and statutory bodies. And then, as well as that, we were confronted on the street by people, some business people, saying we were against everything and we didn't want, because all the misinformation had got out about the benefits of fracking. And the same thing happened with, I was almost accosted on the street and said, there's gold, what are you objecting to? You're objecting to everything. So I think it's up to the government and the statutory bodies, to act in time and not leave it to the people on the ground that have to do it. So I don't know what the people that are here, wish you all the best of luck, whoever gets elected, can you be in there and in the beginning and try and get something done? I mean, we should be able to get a government ban on gold mining.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take a third question before I put it to the table. Any other questions?
And the cyanide, ban on cyanide as well.
Ban on cyanide as well, yeah. So if I'm not representing your question correctly, let me know. But it is, how genuine is your support for the gold mine, a ban on gold mining? In other words, how did the prospecting licence get given in the first place? Why weren't we supported and given the opportunity and the knowledge and the information so that we could actually act before they were given? And then the second one is, how is your value if there was an advantage in it? Would you still stand strong against a ban on gold mining? In other words, to protect the environment, sort of under all circumstances. Am I reflecting your questions correctly?
Yeah, thank you, because it was a bit long-winded.
No, that's, yeah. So in the interest of fairness and to save my legs, I'm starting on this side.
Thank you, Madeleine, and thanks for the questions. And I think one of that first question by John is an interesting question, because it's very easy to sit here and go, because we're looking to get votes. It's like looking for your job. You go, so yes, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I can honestly say that if gold mining was a critical mineral, then we wouldn't have 500 years of it above ground. So it's not a critical mineral. That would be my answer to it. I think if anything is a critical mineral, we do have to give it due. We really do have to look at it and see, do we need to mine it? We can't say no and expect us to be taking it from people who exploit it in other parts of the world who don't have the same rights as us, who don't have the same environmental thing. But I would say on gold mining, we will not need gold mining licenses, and I cannot see gold mining licenses being granted, and I would be absolutely opposed to them.
But then I think the prospecting licence should be...
The prospecting licence was given because it was base minerals. It wasn't just, they weren't looking just for gold. They had a number of issues through it, and that's why they got the mining licence. And that was very clever of them. But you can be sure if they're coming back saying, oh, it's gold, they are not going to get granted a mining licence, because it would be very hard under the climate bill to be talking about extracting gold from the ground when we already have enough of it above. And I think we have to think about all our behaviours and what we're doing. Like, look, disposable vapes have gold and copper in them, and then they're thrown away. So we now have banned that. But we have to think of all our own behaviours and what we're doing. We need to think of resources for the world going forward. And it's by us as consumers acting out that we will start to make that change. But it's the mosquito in the room kind of scenario. You have to make some noise.
Thank you. Well, I think the question, you did say yourself it was hypothetical, and in fairness to you, you flagged that, and it is to the point. But I think the more we get to know about the method of extracting gold, the more we realise that there is no cost-effective, safe way under this open cast mining. And while that remains the case, And for many other reasons, I don't see that it's ever going to be allowed to happen by communities in their community. And I would support their stand on that. Because, it's simply, we hear that to get a half a teaspoon, you'd have to remove a ton of earth and possibly remove it to someplace else for screening to extract if the chemicals were banned, you'd have to move it elsewhere to extract a half teaspoon. In relation to the other question about why was the prospecting licence granted, it appears to me that it was a clever wordplay insofar as they masked the gold with the base minerals. In other words, somebody might say, well, in blocking the gold, they blocked other base minerals that are in high demand and aren't being extracted in third world countries, etc., and could be of benefit. So it was, like a good news story, like what you'd tell a child going to bed at night, a happy ending. And that's how it slipped through. Thank you.
Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, I can't see how it would ever, be okay to introduce gold mining, regardless of the yield, regardless of the outcome. I think, like we've learned, like we've seen, I suppose, the exploitation of other critical minerals in the global south, and I'm sure critical minerals will change with as technology advances as well. I'm sure critical minerals will actually change its stance as well. But I can't see how it would ever, I can't see, when is economic growth enough? When is it just can we just stop, So I can't see how it ever would.
Yeah, thank you. Many years ago, I remember, it must be 40 years ago, I read a book called The Growth Delusion by a guy called Richard Douthwaite, if any of you ever read it. And one of basically the thesis of that was that if you keep growing and keep growing and keep growing, ultimately there comes a stage where the world is eaten up, and that this growth is not forever required. And that comes to your point, the method here of extracting the minerals is as much the issue as whether the mineral is worth a huge value, because the value of that mineral is not going to be anything to anyone in this room or anyone in North Leitrim. It's going to be shareholders of multinational corporations if that's what it does. So, I think from that point, you mentioned it was a hypothetical question, and it is a hypothetical question. But to come back to the point that Mary made in relation to the prospecting licence, my understanding is that in most of these veins of minerals, there's a whole range of minerals there. Gold is one of them. There's a whole range of other. There may be copper, there may be zinc, there may be other things there as well. So when the licence is applied for, it's applied for all of the range. So they don't have to say which one they're prioritising. But in this particular case, we know it's gold they're prioritising. That particular company goes after gold in general. So I think, in fairness to the Minister, that's the reason why he would have issued a prospecting licence. But I think it was very short-sighted of him and of his department not to check what is the priority of that particular company that is seeking a licence, and to know what they were doing it for, and to recognise that gold is not a vital mineral, certainly for Ireland or for most countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, like in most things, the devil is in the detail. And when I asked Eamon Ryan not to grant that prospecting licence, I was aware that it was for base metals as well as gold. And it's my understanding, and I can be corrected by some of the experts to my left here, that in order to extract gold, you need to use cyanide, and I think, is it mercury? Mercury. And therefore, that can be dealt with, because if it's copper or zinc you want to extract, you don't need to use cyanide or mercury, both of which are highly toxic. I mean, mercury and cyanide are two of the most toxic substances there are. So they're still, even though, to be fair to Minister Ryan, he did grant the prospecting licence, and I can see why. We still have every opportunity to ensure in the next government or whenever that the mining licence, if there is a licence granted for copper or zinc or whatever, that it is worded in such a way that the cyanide and the mercury cannot be used, which would allow a company to extract gold, which means that if that's what a company is after, then they're not going to mine. So it's not lost. There's a battle to be fought, and as I said, the devil is in the detail, but certainly that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And when I look at the brochure here for Love Leitrim, and it states that Flint Ridge Resources, Galantis, were fined 120,000 for breaches of health and safety regulation at Dungannon Crown Court, putting people's lives at risk. Flint Ridge had exceeded the proper use of explosives and no proper risk assessment had been carried out. Quite honestly, I think that's an indictment of that particular company. I have no problem stating here tonight that I would not accept or agree to gold mining in Leitrim or in any other county in this country. That's my stand on that, and I stand over it. Thank you.
Hello again. I started off this evening by introducing myself, and I said that this evening will be an education for me. And I think so far we're hearing some stuff here that we're all being educated. I'm not your stereotypical politician because I'm brand new to this stuff, but I deeply care. And I've just been jotting down a couple of things as I've been listening. And there's a very, very blatant contradiction that's going on here. And I'm surprised that Marion has kind of joined in with it as a local independent. There's no doubt that the Dublin East Coast centric and political parties simply don't care, and they don't and won't listen. The contradiction is that the East looks to the West, the Northwest region, because we may be rich with natural mineral resources. And they're quite willing to give away licenses to people which will eventually destroy our environment. And that's a fact. And what I want to say, and I'm angry about this, it's how dare they take us all for granted when we are the poorest region in our island. It's easy to come and rape us that way, but they won't actually give us what we need. That's what I have to say.
Sorry, yeah. Can I respond? Yeah, just bear. Okay, I'm just going to give Marion the chance to respond. And then we've one more question. I see two more questions from the audience. And we're going to have to wrap up on the gold mining then after that, because we want to give every group here a chance. Marion.
Just briefly.
Yeah, thank you.
I tried to give the detail. I tried to give a solution. We are where we are. The prospecting licences have been granted. What we need to do is make sure mining is not granted. And that's what I'm talking about. Thanks.
Okay, I can see one question up there was, yeah?
I want to ask, why is 27% of this country give out in prospecting license? And if you look at England, I think it's 2 or 3% of the country that's give out in license. Why have we 27% of our country give out in prospecting license and the size of our country?
Thank you, yeah. Dee?
I just wanted to ask again about the cyanide ban.
My apologies. Dee is asking for a commitment to a ban on the use of cyanide.
And it's just a couple of words.
I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah. So the question is, and oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
John, behind you, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great that everyone's supporting the ban, but is there anyone who will champion a ban and commit to bringing it in as soon as possible if they're elected?
I'd like to comment on the Eastern-centric comment. And I find that's a cheap shot.
Here.
Really, really cheap shot. It happens to be where all the departments are.
Yeah.
And it's the suits of the departments that set up the forestry policy and everything else. And most of them are actually country people.
Yes.
The buildings are all brick and they're all cork inside.
Okay, I'll bring it back to topic here. So.
You are.
I'm having a go at our government who don't care about the rest of the country outside the East Coast.
Sorry, just bringing us back, Maria Casterly has joined us, so you're very welcome. The question regarding gold mining is, why is 27% of Ireland given over to the granting of prospecting licences? I think the term once used was they're being given out like snuff at a wake in Ireland in comparison to other countries. So I might start in the middle and move around. So Marion, I'll start with you.
I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer. I presume this has happened over many years, perhaps for different, I presume it's not all for gold or base metals or whatever. It's for everything from oil to, I don't know if you're talking about our seas or our land or whatever. So, yes, Tara Mines, obviously. But obviously, governments over many years, I suspect, for the last 50 years, have been handing out licences. But the question is a good one. Why has it happened? But the better question is, we have to make sure it doesn't continue to happen.
So you want to champion?
Yes, I absolutely would champion a ban on no gold mining and a ban on the use of cyanide and mercury in extractive industries. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry, just to pay tribute to the second question, am I interpreting it as, will you bring policy forward? Will you bring legislation forward? Champion it to that level? Yes, thank you. Sorry, Martin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, the question in regard to champion it, absolutely, with no difficulty whatsoever. If we're elected in this constituency, we're fortunate enough to be elected to represent this beautiful part of the world, we need to be there to stand up for it and to make a stand. And I'm certainly prepared to make that stand to ensure that we have not a situation where our environment is going to be destroyed and the potential, not just the tourist potential, but every other industrial potential and commercial potential we have in this part of the country will be destroyed by that. So I have no issue in being a champion for that, bringing forward legislation, working with others to do so, coming to a situation where we can find collective agreement, because that's one of the problems we have in this country. I come up with, and I mentioned about the forestry, we'll come to that in a few minutes, to have, planning permission for forestry over 5 hectares. The reason I went for 5 hectares is because when I talked to the other parties, all of them said, well, if it was any less than that, they wouldn't be able to support it. And I thought I had a kind of a consensus, particularly with Fianna Fáil at the time. Didn't work out. They voted against it. But that's what we need to do. We need to build consensus around this and work together to do it and to get everybody on board. And that's, I think, one of the crucial things we need to do. But I have no issue in being a champion to do that. The issue in regard to why is there so many prospecting licences issued, I imagine it's because there has been a long tradition in Ireland of prospecting and of finding minerals. I think it's called, some man called Mitchell back in the 1800s wrote a book about all the different places in Ireland where there was small mines. One of them was in Meona. I think Paddy might know it enough of us. There was actually a small lead mine at one time. These mines happened over the Tara mines is another example. And when they were actually prospecting for Tara mines, they found almost as much zinc in the West Cavan area as they found in that area, but they didn't actually go ahead with it. It was Tara that went ahead. It's very similar kind of mining where they dig out, except that they do it in tunnels under the ground, dig out massive amounts of soil and rock and then process it. And I think it's one of the problems we have in Ireland is that as we move forward, we need to find a way of using less of these minerals. And that's, I think, what we need to look toward.
Tara is in the east of the country.
Yes.
Okay, can I just ask sort of the rest of the panel, I think the question is similar with the theme. Would you in any way disagree with what the last 2 speakers have said? Or would you have any extra comment that you would like to make on it?
Just a tiny extra comment. Yeah, no, I would 100% agree, and I'd be delighted to champion it. And I think we can learn from you that you have championed it here yourselves locally. You're the ones. But also, I think in terms of cyanide and mercury, that it's to highlight the cause, the danger that it causes to the water supply, and I suppose that would be an area to build on, that will affect us all.
Thank you. Everyone okay with that? Sorry, yeah, Eamon?
I just want to say I have no problem supporting this or in the Dáil or anywhere else. We've done it before on fracking and we'll do it again on this gold mining. I have no problem with that. And I fully commit here tonight that if elected, I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Okay, we've just been joined with Marie Casterly, and Marie, in the debate so far, has asked our election candidates really three things. Would they support and champion a ban on gold mining in Leitrim and in all of Ireland, and ban the use of cyanide? And I just ask you sort of for a short comment. We're about to close up with this one.
Absolutely, and apologies for arriving late. Yes, of course, I'm going to champion those causes as well. And I think for the last 10 years that I've been in local politics in Sligo, I know that with Eddie and all the work that's been done by everybody here in the group, that and they've been championing all this behind the scenes. When when it is quiet, they still keep it on the agenda. And I know that in Sligo County Council that we had supported the fracking ban. So everything that was passed in Leitrim County Council, we supported it automatically. So I don't think, and we've been up at Leinster House and we've stood outside Leinster House with our signs and supported the tourism industry and the farmers as well. So I don't think there's any question from anybody who is here. I can't see anybody not supporting it because it's a no-brainer, and I know from over the years the work that's been done, it's fantastic and it's known. Your work is known in Leinster House, and you've set down a very good, I suppose, a strong agenda, and that everybody knows that you're not going to take no for an answer. So I think that it's been set down, that the boundary has been set down, and it's not going to be. I don't think anybody is going to challenge it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just noted that we've been joined by another one of our election candidates, Mr. Frank Fian. You're very welcome. So far, we're just coming to the end of the first subject, and it was gold mining. And so far, the questions have led to a consensus from all the candidates here so far that they would stand behind, champion, and work comprehensively towards banning gold mining in Leitrim and banning gold mining in Ireland because it is not necessary. That's, I think, the message. Am I reflecting it? Yeah? So I'm just going to ask you for a short comment because we're moving forward to the next subject. Thank you. And you're very welcome.
Thank you. My apologies, I was late. I had another commitment and I was glad that I'm able to kind of rush here to get to you here today. Look, I'm very aware of this situation. I think before 2011, Eddie Mitchell approached me regarding legislation on fracking, and I think I brought it to a certain level, and I'm delighted that Tony McLaughlin, who was the TD for Sligo North Leitrim at the time, along with Blaine Gaffney, who eventually ended up working for me, worked on the fracking legislation, and I very much welcome that, and I'm prepared to come here to listen and work with you and support you for whatever you can do. But it's great to see cross-party support here tonight, but again, apologies for being late. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to close the subject of gold mining for tonight. I'm going to ask you, James, is there anything you would like to say?
Just a few points here. They're very short. So just in relation, just to clarify with Frank, you would support a ban on gold mining, just to clarify that? You would. And ban on cyanide, because I think just when you came in late, it was about fracking.
Can I just, I will support, absolutely, but I always say to you that, a lot of times things happen in government and things like that, but I will work with you. But sometimes, and I'll be straight up, and I've seen this before, some opposition parties or people bring things to the Dáil and they say, will you do this and do that, and it's very complicated, and then people think you're either for or against, and that sometimes that politics comes into it, where to me it's quite unnecessary. And so a lot of times people think, God, he voted against, where there might be an amendment in from government. It mightn't be 100% for, but might 90% for. And sometimes I want to just caveat that with you, because I've been in that situation before where people say he was against it, and that happens in government. And I hope if I'm elected that I will be in government. So thank you.
That's my East Coast centric there. That's the East Coast centric answer right there for you folks. If you're wondering about it, that's it.
Just keep a respect. Yes, and it was trashed out about the nuances of actually banning gold mining, while at the same time keeping the angle open there to have our critical minerals that will be needed. That was discussed earlier. So I suppose just to finish off, in relation to the Critical Raw Minerals Act, it was mentioned earlier on that landowners can stop people accessing their land at the prospecting stage. The Critical Raw Minerals Act has actually changed that. The companies can get a High Court injunction. Now it's a long way to do it, but they can do that. But what we're still going to push that case at the moment, that if they want to come in, they're really going to have to, fight their case. Once it comes to mining, if that ever did happen, it's a CPO, so that's really not going to work well. So I guess the solution really is just a ban. I mean, there's no other way about it. We've heard that from everyone this evening. I think this is a new form of colonialism, and the old way of colonialism is to divide and conquer. We need unity on this going forward. We need people to take a stand. I'm delighted that everyone has come here tonight and said that they will champion a ban on gold mining. And I just want to thank everyone, and let's move on. Okay?
So before the last act as regards the gold mining, I'm going to ask everyone here to raise their hand if they are actively and comprehensively supporting a ban in gold mining in Leitrim and in Ireland. So everyone who is supporting that, can you please raise your hand? And audience as well.